I didn't notice that I had a hot temper until I got with Jeezy.
Jeannie Mai went to court, not to relitigate the divorce, not to revisit the abuse allegations, not to fight about who was right and who was wrong in the collapse of a marriage that the public watched unfold in real time. She went to court because Jeezy allegedly stopped paying, stopped responding, stopped honoring the terms of the settlement agreement that both of them signed and both of them were legally bound to follow. And what she is claiming he owes her, when you add up the childcare, the tuition, the housing costs, the vehicles he was supposed to transfer, the $500,000 account he was supposed to establish for their daughter, is not a rounding error in a rich man's finances.
Hand to heart, I swear, any woman who has been divorced, in that year, you have red flags if it's not going to work. I did.
It is a documented refusal to follow through on commitments he made in front of a judge. Jeezy built his public persona around a specific code. Honor your word, carry your weight, be the man who shows up. And if Jeannie's court filings are accurate, if he has been ghosting her legal team since July, leaving her unable to insure the cars he was awarded, unable to access the funds he promised for Monaco's education, then the gap between the persona and the behavior is not just embarrassing, it is a legal problem. And Jeannie is done waiting for it to resolve itself quietly. To understand why this particular fight is hitting differently than the noise that has surrounded this divorce from the beginning, you have to understand what is actually at stake. This is not Jeannie asking for more than she was promised. This is Jeannie asking for exactly what was agreed to, and documenting, in court filings that are now public record, the specific ways in which Jeezy has allegedly failed to deliver it. The divorce itself was filed by Jeezy in September 2023.
Jeezy got a divorce.
Jeezy
got a divorce. It hurts my soul.
Holy sh!
For divorce.
He made that choice. The same unilateral, blindsiding move that left Jeannie learning about the end of her marriage through channels that should have been a private conversation. She had been in therapy with him. She had been fighting for the relationship. She was, by every account from people close to her, still invested in making it work when the paperwork hit. And then it hit. And everything that followed, the abuse allegations, the custody battle, the prenuptial dispute, has been a consequence of the way that exit was handled from the very first move. But the financial dispute Jeannie is now escalating is separate from all of that history in one important way.
People change. People behave in ways where you didn't expect, and I definitely, you see things in people, and then it makes you completely not able to trust anybody after that.
It is not about what happened inside the marriage. It is not about who was right in the allegations and who was right in the denials. It is about a contract, a legal document with specific terms that both parties agreed to and that a court enforced. And Jeezy, allegedly, has been treating that contract as optional. The specific claims Jeannie has filed are detailed enough to be taken seriously. She says Jeezy owes $4,000 in unpaid child care and tuition from Monaco, a number that is almost insultingly small for a man of his financial standing, which makes the non-payment feel less like an inability and more like a choice.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write my list.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna forgive.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna forget.
But see, I'm looking in your eyes and I'm not really buying that.
I'm gonna forgive, but I'm not gonna forget.
She says the $500,000 he was supposed to deposit into an interest-bearing account for their daughter's future has never materialized. She says the two luxury vehicles, a 2021 Range Rover and a 2022 Ford Bronco, that were awarded to her in the settlement have never had their titles transferred, leaving her unable to legally drive or insure either one of them. She is living in Los Angeles and waiting for a car to be shipped from Atlanta that she technically owns, but cannot operate because the paperwork Jeezy was supposed to file has not been filed. And then there is the housing. Jeannie says Jeezy owes her nearly $100,000 in unpaid rent, money he was obligated to cover as part of the settlement terms, and that, according to her filing, has simply not arrived. Add it all up, and you are looking at a man who allegedly signed a settlement, walked away from the proceedings, and then stopped honoring almost every financial obligation he accepted in the process.
As I've known from season 1, I'm always honest about things we struggled through. I was real, man, sometimes too real for everybody to have an opinion about.
That is not a technicality. That is not a paperwork delay or a miscommunication between attorneys. That is a pattern. And the fact that his legal team allegedly went silent in July, stopped responding to Jeannie's counsel entirely, leaving her with no avenue to resolve these issues outside of court, is the detail that removes any remaining charitable interpretation from the situation. You do not ghost someone's legal team by accident. You ghost them because you have decided you are not going to engage. And Jeezy, a man who has built a career on the image of someone who handles his business and keeps his word, has apparently decided that the business of honoring his divorce settlement is not business he intends to handle. The custody dimension of this story is the layer that makes everything heavier. because Monaco is not an abstraction in these court filings. She is a toddler whose childcare and tuition are allegedly going unpaid.
Changed my mind and I said, you know what? I want to be a mom. I chose it. I decided to shift my perspective and choose this for myself.
Whose education account her father was supposed to establish and has not. Whose daily life and security are directly affected by whether the adults in her life followed through on the commitments they made about how to care for her after their marriage ended. Jeezy has said, publicly and repeatedly, that his primary concern is being an active father to Monaco. He has fought for joint custody, framed his position throughout the divorce proceedings as being about his daughter rather than about his conflict with Jeannie. But active fatherhood is not just physical presence. It is financial responsibility. It is following through on the agreements you made about how your child will be supported.
We tend to notice similar cracks in our relationships we might not have seen before.
And if Jeannie's filings are accurate, the man who says he is fighting for his daughter has not paid her school tuition, has not funded the account he promised for her future, and has not transferred the vehicles he was supposed to transfer months ago. Those two things, the rhetoric of devoted fatherhood and the alleged reality of unpaid obligations, do not coexist comfortably. And the court is going to have to reconcile them in a way that Jeezy's public statements alone cannot manage. The abuse allegations that emerged during the divorce proceedings remain the most serious and most contested element of this entire story.
Honestly, it was treacherous. I got some help. I did get, I saw a psychologist.
Jeannie filed detailed claims. 4 separate incidents, specific dates and locations, physical descriptions of injuries. She described being struck, being choked from behind on a staircase at the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco, being grabbed hard enough to tear her clothing and scratch her skin. She described finding a loaded AK-47 accessible to Monaco. She provided photographic evidence and text messages she characterized as apologies from Jeezy. Jeezy denied everything, called the allegations false and deeply disturbing, said the attempt to tarnish his character was malicious and part of a broader strategy to influence the custody proceedings. His ex-fiancée and the couple's nanny both filed affidavits supporting his character as a father and describing no abusive behavior during their respective interactions with him. The legal record will ultimately determine how those allegations are weighed. What is significant in the current context is that they are part of the same pattern of proceedings that produced the financial settlement Jeezy is now allegedly ignoring. The court that examined the divorce, the custody dispute, and the abuse allegations is the same court that enforced the terms Jeannie says he is violating. His decision to stop engaging with those terms is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening in the shadow of everything that was already established about his conduct in this marriage and this divorce. The prenuptial agreement adds another layer that has never been fully resolved. Jeannie has contested the prenup, arguing that she signed it under duress just 2 days before their wedding, that the timing and the circumstances did not constitute genuine informed consent. Jeezy's position is that the prenup was mutually agreed upon and that Jeannie's attempt to overturn it is a litigation strategy rather than a legitimate legal claim. That dispute is still working its way through the process, but it is relevant here because it tells you something about how both parties understand the financial architecture of their divorce and who believes they were treated fairly within it. If Jeannie genuinely believes she signed a document under duress that disadvantaged her financially, and if the settlement that followed was built on top of that contested foundation, then her decision to press hard on every clause of the settlement that Jeezy is allegedly violating is not just about the specific amounts owed. It is about not allowing herself to be financially diminished by a man who she believes has already used legal mechanisms to limit what she walked away with. The public reception to this dispute has been notable. The sympathy that Jeannie has generated is real, and it is grounded in something specific. The perception that a woman who was blindsided by a divorce filing, who had abuse allegations that were detailed and documented, who has been raising their daughter while fighting on multiple legal fronts simultaneously, is now being made to go back to court just to get the man who left her to honor the agreement he signed. That is not a sympathetic look for Jeezy, regardless of how any other element of their dispute resolves. And Jeezy's silence on the specific financial claims has been more damaging than any statement he could have made. When someone accuses you of failing to pay your child's tuition and you respond by having your legal team go quiet, the inference is not favorable. When someone says you have not transferred the titles to cars that were awarded to her in a settlement and you do not address it publicly or legally in any documented way, the inference is not favorable. When someone says you owe nearly $100,000 in housing costs and the response is silence, the inference is that the response cannot be more than silence, because a substantive response would require either acknowledging the debt or explaining why the agreement should not be enforced. Neither of those options is good for him. What Jeezy has continued to do instead is maintain the evolved man posture in public. The cryptic captions about peace and focus, the interviews in which he discusses growth and moving forward, the presentation of a man who has made his decision and is serenely inhabiting the life that decision produced. That presentation requires the divorce to be a chapter that has been closed, a thing that happened and was processed and now belongs to the past. Jeannie going back to court makes that presentation impossible to maintain, because a chapter is not closed when there are unpaid obligations sitting inside it. Because moving forward does not mean leaving behind the financial commitments you accepted in exchange for being allowed to end the marriage on your terms. Because peace is not the same thing as absolution, and the specific peace Jeezy has been performing publicly is being purchased allegedly at Jeannie's direct financial expense. Monaco is 2 years old. She did not choose any of the circumstances her parents created around her. She did not choose the divorce, the allegations, the custody dispute, the financial fight, any of it. What she deserves, and what Jeannie is now in court trying to secure for her, is the stability that was promised when the settlement was signed. The school paid for, the account funded, the car available for her mother to drive when she needs to take her somewhere. These are not large asks in the context of what both of these people are worth. They are the minimum of what Monaco deserves from a father who says she is his primary concern, and a settlement that was supposed to guarantee certain things regardless of what either parent felt about the other. Jeezy has a choice to make. He can continue treating the settlement as optional and continue facing enforcement actions in court that are going to keep this divorce in the headlines and keep the gap between his public image and his documented behavior visible to anyone paying attention. Or he can honor what he agreed to, pay what he owes, transfer what he promised, fund what he committed to fund, and give Monaco, at minimum, the financial security her parents agreed she deserved. That second option requires him to stop performing peace and actually extend it to the person he is still legally bound to cooperate with for the rest of Monaco's childhood. The court is going to compel one of those outcomes if he does not choose the other. Jeannie has made that clear by filing, and the judge assigned to enforce the terms of this settlement is not going to be moved by Instagram captions about focus and evolution. The receipts are in the filing. The obligations are in the settlement. And Jeannie Mai is done being quiet about the gap between the two. There is something worth examining in the specific way Jeezy has continued to position himself publicly while this enforcement action has been building. Because the Evolved Man brand requires a particular relationship with the past. It requires the difficult chapters to stay in the past, to be referenced only as evidence of how far he has come rather than as ongoing situations that demand present accountability. Every interview in which he talks about growth and peace and focus is an interview that implicitly asks the audience to believe that the messy parts are behind him. Jeannie filing in court is the most direct possible refutation of that framing. It says the messy parts are not behind him. They are current. They are documented. They are sitting in a courthouse with her name on them and his obligations listed in plain language. And the audience that has been receiving his growth narrative is now also receiving her enforcement filing, and those two things do not synthesize into a flattering picture. The people who have been sympathetic to Jeezy throughout this divorce, who accepted his framing of the marriage as something that needed to end for his mental health, who nodded along with the cryptic captions about not carrying people who are not coming with him, are now looking at a man who allegedly cannot be moved to pay his daughter's school tuition. That is a specific and difficult thing to explain away with philosophy. The gap between what he says about himself and what the filings describe about his behavior is not abstract. It is $4,000 in unpaid childcare. It is a $500,000 account that does not exist. It is 2 cars she cannot drive. Jeannie, for her part, has navigated all of this with a control that is visible even in the emotional interviews she has given. She has spoken about the divorce in terms that are personal, without being unhinged. She has described her pain in ways that resonate without tipping into the kind of public behavior that would give Jeezy's camp material to work with. She went through IVF to have Monaco. She changed her position on marriage and motherhood. She gave him things that she had spent years deciding she would not give anyone. And the return on that investment has been a contested prenup, unpaid obligations, and a legal team that went dark in July. That is not the story she signed up for when she said yes on that first date that lasted 8 hours, and the specific clarity with which she is now pursuing her legal rights, not asking for more than she was promised, just demanding what she was promised, is the clearest possible signal that whatever softness she extended to the marriage and to him during the marriage, she is no longer extending to the financial dispute that followed it. Monaco is the person this conversation should keep returning to, because everything Jeezy says about wanting to be an active father, everything he has put on record about his love for his daughter and his commitment to her life, has a counterpart in these filings. The counterpart is that he has not paid for her school. He has not funded her account. He has not transferred the vehicles her mother needs to take care of her daily life. Active fatherhood has a financial dimension that does not disappear because a man is available for the moments he chooses to show up for. It requires being present in the obligations you accepted precisely because they are obligations rather than choices. A settlement is not a suggestion. It is not a starting point for ongoing negotiation about how much of it you feel like honoring. It is a legal contract with enforcement mechanisms, specifically because the legal system anticipates that people who signed agreements under the pressure of litigation sometimes decide once the pressure lifts that they are less committed to the terms than they appeared. Jeannie activating those enforcement mechanisms is not aggressive. It is appropriate. It is exactly what the system is designed to allow. And the fact that she has had to use it, that the alternative, which was Jeezy simply following through, apparently was not going to happen on its own, tells you something about where his priorities actually sit relative to where he says they sit. He said his truth would prevail through proper legal channels. Jeannie is in the proper legal channels right now. The truth of what he owes and whether he is paying it is exactly what those channels are built to determine. And if the filings are accurate, the truth that is about to prevail through proper legal channels is not going to be favorable to the story he has been telling about himself. The broader audience watching this story has largely made up its mind about where the moral weight sits. Social media commentary on the financial dispute has been notably one-sided in Jeannie's direction. Not because people have uniformly decided everything she claimed about the marriage was true, but because the specific claims she is making now are so concrete and so verifiable that they resist the kind of he said, she said dismissal that more ambiguous allegations invite. You either paid the tuition or you did not. The title was either transferred or it was not. The account either exists or it does not. These are not matters of interpretation. And the fact that Jeezy's response to these specific, verifiable, documented claims has been to go quiet, to let his legal team stop responding, to leave the situation unaddressed until Jeannie had no option but to file, reads as the behavior of someone who knows the answers to those verifiable questions are not good for him. Jeannie said in a public interview that she took time to love herself back after the divorce, that she spent real effort finding out who she was on the other side of it. That kind of rebuilding takes energy that should not also have to be spent chasing a man through the courts to honor obligations he accepted as the price of being allowed to file on his own terms. She should be done with this fight. The settlement should have closed it. And the fact that it did not, the fact that she is back in front of a judge asking for enforcement of terms he agreed to, is the last piece of evidence anyone should need about the gap between who Jeezy performs himself to be and who the documented record says he is. Monaco will grow up and understand this story eventually. She will read the filings. She will see the timeline. She will know that her mother went to court to make her father pay for her school and fund her account and sign over the cars that were part of the settlement. That is not a story that reflects well on the man who made it necessary. And no amount of Instagram captions about growth and evolution and choosing peace will rewrite what the court record says about how he chose to treat the obligations he accepted when the marriage ended. So here is where this sits. Jeannie has taken Jeezy back to court, alleging he owes her nearly $100,000 in housing costs, $4,000 in unpaid childcare and tuition for Monaco, has not funded the $500,000 account he agreed to establish for their daughter, and has not transferred titles to 2 vehicles she was awarded in the settlement. His legal team allegedly went silent in July and stopped engaging entirely, and this is all happening against the backdrop of abuse allegations, a contested prenup, and a custody dispute that has never fully resolved. Do you think Jeezy's alleged failure to honor these terms is financial leverage, a way to maintain control over Jeannie even after the divorce? Or is there a legitimate explanation for why a multimillionaire would not pay his child's $4,000 tuition bill? And does Jeannie pressing this fight in public change how you see her position in everything that has come before it? Drop everything you are thinking in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe, because this case has more hearings ahead of it, and every development is going to tell us something new about who both of these people actually are when the cameras are not making them behave.